Good morning. Um, Welcome. Okay, so today you guys are going to argue a position. And what I want to do, the way I want to structure this is I want to give you guys some time in breakout rooms for each side to give you an opportunity to um, talk amongst yourselves and sort of get your arguments together and figure out what you think. Um, as a reminder, the uh, topic for today's conversation is that adverse possession doctrine affords societies a way to prevent violence over competing claims to land. So, the way that we're going to set this up is um, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms for each side. You're going to get about 15 minutes to talk amongst yourselves, and then we're going to come back and have our conversation uh, as a group. And we're going to have sort of structured statements from each side, and then we'll do things a little more free form. Okay? So, uh, with that, we're going to um, let you choose your side. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And let me rename these. And what I will say is that you can choose your side up to a point, because I want the negative to be to have where there's unbalance, which we have an odd number of students right now. So where there's an odd number of students, I want the negative to have the advantage in numbers because I think the negative is a little harder. Because the the reading that you guys were assigned that is sort of related to today's um, discussion sort of makes an argument for the affirmative, and so the negative is having to build an argument in this uh, well, negative space, uh, pun unintended. So with that, you guys can choose your rooms, but I need no more than 3 of you in the affirmative, no more than 4 in the negative. So the rooms are open. You guys can, if you're having problems joining, you can say which side you want to go on, and as long as there's room on that side, I can assign you. Okay, 2 more seats in the affirmative room. Last seat in the affirmative room. Petra, which side do you want to go onto? I can't. Okay. And the rest of you guys go in the negative room. Okay, great. Welcome back. I appreciate what you guys did in the breakout rooms. Let's start hearing from the affirmative. So anybody from the affirmative?
Okay, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah. So we started by saying what is adverse possession. Adverse, according to the article, adverse possession is a legal theory that both limits the time period in which owners can bring ownership, claims for property, and rewards active use of land over passive legal possession. This could be used as a mechanism for determining which claim and right should prevail. So after that, we want seeing, well, there is a subtopic or subheading in the article as well that says that the doctrine of adverse possession grants lawful title to occupiers in possession of property abandoned by the previous owner. So this legal doctrine of adverse possession allows a person to acquire lawful title to land legally belonging to another through the continuous possession of land. So that's why we're going with the affirmative way, because then this surely says that we have, well, as the question says, to resolve, this surely makes that there is no violence. Yeah, it's a way to prevent violence over competing claims to land. Now, I'll pass it on to my colleagues.
Okay. Anything else from the affirmative or?
Yeah, they have some cases.
Okay. Well, let's hear what you've got.
Okay, so before we get to the cases, just to add, adverse possession also benefits the country by providing a social and economic stability. This will ease the judicial administration, basically ensuring that the use of land is optimum. We can go into the cases now.
Okay. Who's going to be presenting the cases?
Yeah, my group members or
Hi.
oh, sorry.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Um. Sorry. I was away from the computer. Where we at now?
The question was who's presenting the cases for the affirmative side?
Oh yes. Okay. Um, to be honest, I wasn't really prepared for this. I only mentioned the play case during the discussion because I realized it had it has the requirements for acquisitions of title for adverse possession. And it's because it's not also as one in leading law cases in adverse possession.
Okay.
So I can also go based off of the land title proceedings here too, and now as it relates to like family matters, because the adverse possession only relates to individuals, it relates to family matters also. Hopefully no banana wants not. Like for instance, the case of play was where a defendant used an occupied land for like 14 years and treated it as his own, even though the plaintiff had refused to acknowledge or prepare a grazing agreement with the defendant. And I found further in that case, the plaintiff had asked the defendant over time to vacate the land, but he did not. So it was only after a limitation period that the plaintiff in that matter filed a suit to gain possession of the land. So issues in relation to that, issues as to when was the plaintiff dispossessed had arose, and it was whether the owner's action was barred by the Limitation Act, which is in the UK, which had provided that no action could be brought after the limitation period of 12 years had occurred. So unfortunately for the plaintiff, the Lord in that case would have applied the test on the facts that and stated that legal possession by the same adverse possession or possessor, requires a sufficient degree of physical custody and control. So that is factual possession and the intention to exercise such custody and control on one's own behalf and for one's own benefit. So that is the intention to possess. So therefore, the plaintiff in that matter was barred from bringing a claim, and the defendant was acquired the title to the land. Because of those facts, even though you occupy land for a certain amount of time, there's still certain steps and provisions and other issues that has to be considered. All of what my colleagues would have said and what I would have mentioned that came from the case would help prevent violence over the competing claims to land. That's my summation.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. So let's hear from the negative now. So what do you guys have to offer?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, I received notice of this a bit late, so I'm not really prepared for today's tutorial in that I haven't gone through everything for the article. But I'm assuming from the question, from the little bit I scanned through, is that they're saying that adverse possession does not really cause disruption or the cause of need for violence for between the person who owns the land adversely and the person who owned it previously, right?
I'm sorry, say that again a little more slowly.
Okay, so the statement is saying that resolved adverse possession doctrine affords societies a way to prevent violence over conflicting claims of land.
Right.
This is not from the article, but more of why saying this may not be the case, because while someone may agree to getting the land in adverse possession, this may not necessarily result in no violence at all, because this person could disagree saying this is wrong, right or wrong.
I mean, yeah, that's part of the concern, right? Is that adverse possession is intended to prevent self-help And certainly self-help is a thing that can happen, right, without, regardless of what the law calls for. But I think that the resolution in the affirmative position is that by providing a process for adjudicating among competing claims, adverse possession prevents the likelihood of that sort of self-help. But I think that the and I think that it, a fair criticism from the negative is the one that you offer, that you haven't actually solved anything. There's still room for self-help even after an adverse possession claim is adjudicated and legal title is awarded. The problem that we have is that I don't. I think that that's one criticism that you can offer. I'm not convinced that it's the only criticism that you can offer. So, is there anything else that we want to hear from the negative before we move to something a little more open and I pose some questions to both sides.
On part of the negative, it would be that whether, okay, so let's say this person now neglects the land. Does that possession go back to the original owner, or does it go to a new adverse possessor?
And in the sense, let me make sure I understand what the facts of your hypothetical. You're suggesting that you have the title owner, you have A's adverse possession clock that starts running, and then does A acquire title and then abandon the property, or does A abandon the property at a later, at some point before acquiring title, before the limitations period has run?
It was more A abandons the property, B gets adverse possession of it, but B now abandons the property. So does it go back to A, or would it be left to
Yeah.
future C in that instance?
Yeah.
And I think the doctrine really clarifies that. And from my skimming of the article, I don't see anything that would help that, to say that it would prevent that kind of confusion.
Well, let me I think this is a fair question, but let me pose it to the affirmative. What do you think?
I would think that by the law of adverse possession, it would, well, not adverse
Well,
possession. I'm thinking this would go back to A, but it'll all have to depend on who has an actual use for the land at the moment, since both of them abandoned it, but one used it more recently than the other. It will be like whether A has a valid reason to use the land, since he does
well,
own it rightfully.
well, let's hear from the other side and see what they think the answer is.
What was the question?
So the question was, let's say that you have an event where A has adversely possessed a piece of property and has so acquired title, and then they walk away. They abandon the property. Can you reverse adverse possession, right? Can it go back to the original title owner?
I don't believe so, because as I stay here, unless there's some other law I don't know about, you can have possession of property and walk away from it as long as it's not over the specific time that was given. So if there's no physical contribution to the land or no care or control or maintenance towards the property, I think that, especially if you had acquired it legally at the time, regardless of if it's over 5, 6 years, once it's not over 10 years, it should still be yours. I don't think you should lose possession by neglecting or care or control of it unless you're deceased. So.
And that's completely right. That's absolutely right. Okay. Adverse possession it may be helpful, Travis, to think of adverse possession as a one-way ratchet. Okay, so once you are dispossessed of the land through adverse possession, it is no longer yours. You no longer have any interest in it. And you can certainly come in and restart the clock as an adverse possessor yourself, right? The title owner can come in and re-adverse possess the land, but there's no mechanism to go backwards in the chain of title. So does that answer your question, Travis?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So I want to ask a couple of questions of the affirmative folks. And the first question is, there's a couple of links missing in the logic that I'm hearing from you. And I'm not sure if it's that you're not expressing them or that you're engaging in the old debater's trick of pretending that they're there when they're not. And I say that as a former debater, so you should not think that I'm criticizing that move. So, and what I see is missing is I'm not seeing the connection between adverse possession and the reduction in violence. So can you explain that causal mechanism to me?
So you want us to tie adverse possession and the reduction of violence? Basically?
I mean, this is the resolution, right? Is that adverse possession reduces violence. And so in order to defend the resolution, as you are attempting to do, you have to make that causal link explicit. You have to explain how X causes Y.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can look at it from a family law point of view also. Sure. Because, I mean, usually when there are like divorces and stuff like that, there are acts of violence when it comes to separation and property settlement. And even though I don't think the family law specifically speaks about adverse possession, but I think it helps when it comes to like filing for property settlement and you're losing possession of a home to probably the wife or the husband. Let me see how to put this here. The court settle it in a way where there won't be a conflict, and as you will use the term violence, because one could obviously be upset and probably try to burn the house or something. So as I said, the act still sets out what is required or what is considered before a decision has to as it relates to who will have possession of the land, who will have to pay for their direct or indirect contribution to the same land or the home.
So let me make sure.
Go ahead.
Let me make sure I understand your argument here. And as I understand what you're saying, you're suggesting that competing claims for land, whether they come from differing legal systems awarding different titles to the same land, as in the case of Timor-Leste in the article, or whether they come from the decision of a couple to divorce, right, or co-tenants of some sort to split up in some way, that there has to be some mechanism for preventing those competing claims from coming to blows.
Yeah, at least that's how I'm trying to put it.
Sure. No,
because with both of them, with the same case that I use with play, and then as coming from a family law point of view, it all comes down to be determining the contribution to the land and the time that you would have put into this property, and that's
so
when the decision comes in.
So if it's about contribution, then adverse possession is as I understand your position, adverse possession is a mechanism to sort of reward contribution by saying, okay, you've been making use of this property, and so we are going to elevate you above all other potential
However
claims.
many years without any interruption.
Right.
Once it's over time, yes.
Okay.
I don't know what the others have to say, but that's my information.
Seems reasonable to me. What do we think on the negative? Does this seem, what do we find this persuasive? Do we disagree? Guys?
I'd say, yeah, it makes sense for the most part, and I do agree with it.
You've brought one over to your side, Crystal. Let me throw something out there that's a little closer to home for you guys. You are probably aware, since you are from the region, yeah, and Akil I think makes a good point in the chat, which is that there absolutely is room for adverse possession to lead to violence because of the anger, right, from being dispossessed. So I think that Akil makes a very salient point there for the negative, that adverse possession doesn't necessarily solve the problem. But I want to sort of bring this issue of competing claims a little bit closer to home for you guys, right? I'm sure that you're aware of the issues with Montserrat related to the volcano, right? And the fact that the southern 2/3 of the island are basically uninhabitable right now. But before the volcano began erupting in 1995, all of those lands were occupied and were being made use of. So, so I think, so a question that arises that really sort of is salient for the region is, what happens if it takes 25 or 50 or 100 years for the volcanologists to decide that it is safe to occupy the rest of Montserrat. And, you know, 2/3, no, sorry, 3/4 of the population of Montserrat fled the island in the early 2000s. You know, it may not be possible to determine who the title owner is. And so, what should the government do? Right? Should they just sort of mass expropriate all of this property and then, you know, distribute it and sort of restart the chain of title from new patents? Or, you know, like, what do we do? How do we provide something that in the right light we can call justice in this particular case of the volcano in Montserrat?
I guess for those cases, they would have to be very situation sensitive because, yeah, those things would probably be constantly changing over time, and you would need more than just practical legislation to check for that. There could be a broader approach to say that once this intervention comes in, that you're not allowed to use the land, and therefore you wouldn't be adversely possessed if, for example, someone does make some use out of it. But
Oh, I absolutely agree with you that right now it is not really an issue because the government in Montserrat has like prevented all use or occupation of the exclusion zone, right? If it's not safe to be there, you're not allowed to be there. Okay, so I agree with you that right now it is not a super salient problem, but there will come a point where this land acquires new utility, right? It becomes usable again when the experts sort of resolve that, okay, we think that the volcano has likely played itself out for the time being. Um, and so I think that we should be planning ahead for what are we going to do in that situation. And I think that's a an important question that raises policy issues to which adverse possession can be one of the solutions, right? That we can have in that solution space. Okay. So what questions do you guys have, like, before we wrap it up?
My only question, sir, is how far should we revise as it relates to our final exam? Everything?
Yeah, the in terms of what is on the final, everything is fair game.
Okay.
If it's on the syllabus, it's fair game. Now, what I will promise you guys is that the last lecture that we have will be, you know, next week. The last lecture will be an opportunity for you to ask specific questions. And if you have specific questions about things that aren't on the exam, I will tell you, you don't have to know that.
Noted.
Okay. So what I would encourage you guys to do in revising at this point in the process is to focus on finding the things that you don't feel like you understand, so that you can come to the review session and have that ready, and then at the end of that you will have a better grip on what are the things that you need to focus on.
Sir, the review session starts when we last on in the last letter.
Last lecture, so Thursday of next week.
So
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if a person has been maintaining like another person's land and but hasn't like taken possession of, but they have been maintaining for the last 10, 15, 20 years, and then the original owner comes and claims the land, and they started building the land, and the so-called adverse possessor did not really do anything about it, but they want to do something about it after the person, like the original owner, claim it. Can they do something about it since they have been maintaining the land for so long?
Because we're out of time and I have to teach in 10 minutes, I'm going to say, can you email me that question? And then I will respond either via email or via an announcement on e-learning.
Okay, no problem.
All right. So we are out of time, and so I'm gonna let you guys go, and like I have any hold over you, but we'll see you guys tomorrow, and take care, and bye.